Dear students, welcome back to this session. Once again, I'm Dr. Pamela Inclusion, going to take you through this course unit, Special Needs and Inclusive Education. In the previous lesson, we discussed some of the concepts used in special needs, such as impairment, disability, handicap, special needs, special education, special needs education, and special educational needs. In today's session, we shall continue discussing other key concepts used in special needs and also discuss inclusion versus twin track approach. The other concepts used in special needs are exclusion. When we talk of exclusion, what does it mean? What comes into your mind? Exclusion. This is the act of not allowing someone or something to take part in an activity or to enter a place. Exclusion from her exclusion from the list of Oscar nominees. Exclusion of the exclusion of descriptive students from school. So these are children who have been excluded. Then when they come to school, they are also excluded. So that is exclusion, the act of not allowing someone to take part or to participate. The next concept is segregation. Segregation is a provision of education to learners with disabilities in a separate environment, such as special schools, usually for children with a particular disability. In the previous lesson, we had talked about special education. So segregation is related to special education because special education is the education that caters for a category of learners with disabilities. So in a segregated setting, they have their own environment where they are learning from. And in this way, we are calling them special schools. It can also be a unit. A unit is within the ordinary school, but children with disabilities study alone, play alone. They don't come to interact with the other children. Then the next concept is integration. What do you mean by integration? This is a provision of special education services. You remember what we mentioned about special education, which is an education specifically designed for learners with disabilities. So in integration, it is a provision of special education services to learners with certain disabilities within the regular school system. The learners follow strictly what the school offers, but pull out for specialized instruction. For example, if we have learners with visual impairment, they will have their own class, or they call it a resource, where they are pulled out from the ordinary class to go and learn Braille. The same applies to learners with hearing impairment, where they learn alone using sign language. And we also have children with intellectual impairment who are put in their own class set, like a resource room, where they are taught activities for daily living. Then the next concept is inclusive education. Inclusive education is one that today we are talking about. UNESCO defines inclusive education as a process of addressing and responding to the diversity needs of all learners through increasing participation in learning, cultures, and communities, and also reducing exclusion within and from education. So inclusive education is looking at addressing the needs of all learners according to their diverse needs. For example, if we have a child with physical impairment or physical disability, in inclusive education, they are looking at how do we make the environment accessible? How can a child with a physical disability access the classroom? How can this child access administrative building? By providing ramps, so that if a child is able to walk, is able to access. When it comes to a child with visual impairment, inclusive education looks at addressing their needs. For children with visual impairment, they need braille. So once you are in inclusive education, there must be braille for this child to be able to learn. And it is also looking at reducing exclusion. You remember, exclusion is not allowing a person to participate. So in inclusive education, they are reducing exclusion to ensure that every child is not left behind. Every child can be able to access education, participate, and progress. So those are some of other concepts that we use in special needs. Now we look at segregation versus integration, as it is illustrated here. The image explains the concepts of segregation and integration of learners, using learners with disabilities as an example. So in exclusion, you can see up there in the illustration, those children are children without disabilities. They are alone. Then when you look down, there are children with disabilities alone. So each child or categories have different setting. So there is this setting for children without disabilities, and then there is this setting for children with disabilities alone. Then when it comes to integration, there is this school. There is no other school for children with disabilities. The first segregation you can see, there is children with disabilities school is there alone, and then the school for ordinary is there. But when it comes to integration, you can see where they have put them in a circle. In a circle means they are within the mainstream system, but they have this resource room where they go for extra specialized trainings. As I gave an example, for either braille, for those with visual impairment, for either sign language, for those with hearing impairment, and for activities for daily living, for those with. So the two concepts are in agreement about one perspective. Children who are different than others are able to learn, but not in the exact same way as most children are. And that's why in segregation, they are segregated, they have their own. And then in integration, we have this special offer where they withdrawn in the mainstream and they are attended to. So that is the difference between segregation and integration. When it comes to integration, where we are bringing children with disabilities in the ordinary setting, but they are also given a special consideration to cater for their needs. There are three types of integration. The first one is functional integration. Functional integration, this means that children with disabilities attend in a mainstream school with a specific adjustment at the child's level that make this possible. For example, Johnny's legs are not working, so he uses a wheelchair to access a mainstream school. So in the functional, they are fully integrated. They are not even withdrawn, but you put in place what they need. Then we have partial integration. Partial integration, children who are different go to a mainstream school, or children go to the mainstream school where they join their peers for some lessons. In functional integration, they attend all lessons together. But in partial integration, they attend together some lessons as they follow other lessons in a separate group. For example, Sarah and Joan are unable to see. So they attend music lessons with their peers at a mainstream school. But they are also taught English by a specific teacher in a separate classroom so that you cater for their needs. Then social integration. In this one, children with disabilities go to the mainstream where they join their peers during break time or other social activities. So they are not fully integrated. They even not attend some lessons with other children, but they interact with the other children during break time during lunchtime or during play games. So children who are having disability go to the mainstream in social integration, and they only join the other peers during breaks and other social activities. But they learn in a separate classes, as I have said. For example, David cannot hear, so he plays football with hearing friends during break time, but all his lessons are taught in a separate classroom by a different teacher. So they only come in to socialize, but they don't attend same classes. So here we have seen how integration is done and the three different types: the functional, the partial, and the social integration. We are going to see what we call inclusion and twin track approaches. These two are interlinked. Inclusive education focuses on changing the system to accommodate all learners and addressing the specific learning needs for individual children. So they look at changing the system so that every child is in the same class, no any other provisions, but you ensure that the systems are put in place, the learners can access, the learners can learn, they can participate, and they can contribute. So that is inclusive education. You change the system before the children come, so that when children's disabilities are enrolled, they find when the system is already set for them. Then when it comes to twin track approach, it focuses on tackling education exclusion from two sides, by promoting systematic change and by giving specific support. So it has two approaches. The first one is promoting systematic change, that is putting in place the provisions to accommodate children with disabilities, and then ensuring that a specific support is provided. For example, we have changed the system and we have children with hearing impairment. But remember, children with hearing impairment will need sign language. So that is a specific support by providing a sign language interpretation. So the inclusive education focuses on the system, whereas twin track approach focuses on the learner. Then also inclusive education responds to diversity, while the twin track approach in the classroom involves using two twins approaches working towards the same goal. Track 1 involves creating a classroom environment. Track 2 involves identifying and addressing the specific barriers. So as we come to the end of this lesson, you will be able to look through this illustration to help you understand further how the twin track approach is done towards inclusive education. Then we shall meet in the next session and we share about this illustration of twin track approach. Thank you.